What's up, bad boys? Hope you had a great weekend. Welcome to your Monday motivation, mother effers. It's time to lock in, motherfucker. Guys, these videos, we talk about something really specific every week, right? So if you remember, 2 weeks ago, we talked about nutrition, sacred nutrition. Last week, we talked about training, how to optimize your training, the Paladin method, which is destruction, not building. That's one of the biggest differentiators between this and every other program. You know, some people, when they join Paladin, or right before they join, like when we were first talking about it, and I dropped the price of the program, some of them are like, oh dude, like other trainers charge, a lot less. I'm like, yeah, because this isn't a training program. This is a full shift. And not just the way that you see the gym, but the way that you see yourself and the way that you connect with God. So yeah, that's why. And it's also a permanent shift. The people who've gone through this program, it's a permanent shift. Why is that? It's because you change the way that you look at the gym, you change the way you look at nutrition, you change the way that you look at yourself, and you connect with God at the end of the day. There's a lot of subtleties here, guys. Like, when people are like, all right, we're looking at the 3D, I'm gonna give you a meal plan, I'm gonna give you a training program, but they're missing very, very deep things that happen beneath the surface. So today, this week, what we're gonna be talking about is integrity. We talked about sacred discipline in the past, so let's start there. What is discipline? Discipline is pushing on the 3D because you have this goal that you want to achieve. There's nothing wrong with that. Discipline's fantastic. But there's actually a deeper thing that we can tap into, which what we talk about here in Paladin, sacred discipline. If discipline is push, sacred discipline is pull. If discipline is push, that means you, the ego, is pushing, right? You're pushing because you want to achieve a body, because you want to get this validation, because you want to get the girl, because you want to get the money, because you want to get. You see that difference? You want to get, you want to take something. And let's be really, really clear. There is nothing wrong with that in the beginning. It's actually really important to have that in the beginning. For me, and I'm sure a lot of you as well, what got you in the gym? You wanted to get some girls. You wanted to get some validation. You wanted to feel better in your body. That's good. That's how it's supposed to be. There could be something called toxic positivity, where it's like, no, I want to help people. But like, dude, do you really? You can't help people unless you help yourself. So it makes sense to begin to have that, right? Push, push, push. But what happens with just discipline? You burn out and it's empty. You burn out and it's empty. I was actually reading listening to Ecclesiastes last night. Great book in the Bible by King Solomon. He also wrote Proverbs. And in Ecclesiastes, it's really, I encourage all of you to go ahead and read that, because it talks about how everything's meaningless on the physical plane. And what do we mean by that? It's like chasing wind. This is what he said. It's like chasing wind. Food, you binge food, it's like chasing wind. Lust is like the biggest wind. You chase wind. You're like, all right, let me chase after this girl because I feel like that's going to complete me. And maybe you feel completed for 8 seconds, right? And then at the end, you're like, fuck. Same with food. You feel good for like a few seconds, so you want it to last all the time. You can't hold on to this, gentlemen. You can't hold on to what you're seeking in these things. So I say that because the only thing that you can really hold on to, and you can't even hold on to this, but you can be within it, is God, is the eternal now. Otherwise, your mind is going to bring you in all these different directions. So let's bring it back to today's topic, right? The discipline is push, push, push. What happens a lot of times, and I'm sure a lot of you have seen this before you join Paladin, you push, 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 and what happens is you burn out, right? You end up burning out. There's a dissatisfaction. You get the girl or you get the validation, and you see it all the time with Instagram, people getting addicted to the likes. Look what happened to Liver King. I mean, like these crazy addictions can come in all different forms, and addictions can only happen within the physical plane, within pleasure itself. Because what precedes pain is pleasure. extent of pleasure, we're talking about dopamine, by the way, guys. The extent of pleasure is the extent of pain that you feel after. And that's why the cycle's crazy, because you want to keep doing it because you want to feel the pain. I used to take a shit ton of Adderall. And what happened was I would be high on Adderall all day. And then the cycle continued, because when I started to crash and it really felt terrible, like terrible physically, what I would do is I would go ahead and take more so I don't crash. And that just perpetuated until I crashed, until I drank alcohol because the crash was so bad. So it's like using these different substances until you realize there's no salvation there. So bring it back to sacred discipline. How can all of you have this beautiful integrity within your heart, this beautiful feeling of completeness without pushing? Well, discipline is push because it's the ego, it's you as a person. Sacred discipline is pull because your heart is connected to the North Star, which is pulling you in that direction of God, right? So God is pulling you in that direction because you're doing something great. You're bringing people into this loving eternal now. In whatever capacity that looks like. Maybe you're a chiropractor, maybe you're a salesperson, maybe you have your own business, but you see how prosperity comes when you start serving people in that way, when you start bringing people to the kingdom of God and putting yourself aside. You see that? When you put yourself aside, then you're able to serve people in a really powerful way. So you see that difference here. This is why it's so important. The discipline is really about push, 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 push. And you're doing it for you, which again is nothing wrong in the beginning. It's just, and there's nothing wrong. Some people just do discipline. But for people like you who are called for something greater, who understand that the discipline isn't like fixing something in here that you're trying to solve. Sacred discipline is having that mission above you. Then you're a soldier of God. Then you're in the conscious army. Then you're pushing in that powerful direction. Then you get pulled in that powerful direction because God is pulling you. And what's so beautiful about that is you don't burn out. You don't burn out. Why? Because you're being pulled. It's just something you have to do. Now, this takes time, guys. It's not something you can just decide on. And it's also not something that just happens forever. You likely will fall off. You will fall off. You're a human being. The question is do you go down a downward spiral or do you return immediately? It's like falling off a horse. A lot of times when you fall off the horse, you can just get back up and you're good. But what do we do sometimes? Let's say we go over calories. We say, fuck it. And then you start stabbing yourself in the heart with a dagger, man. Emotionally, physically, spiritually. Get back on the wagon. Why is that? It's because God needs you to do this. People need you to do this. You see that bigger vision. It's not just you're being pulled. So full integrity means sticking to your standards on a daily basis. And that's it. If you stick to your standards, your 5 standards, guys, everything else will change. You have your training, obviously your nutrition, but if you stick to your standards and you get the momentum, you'll feel a fire within your belly because you don't miss. A lot of you are just have this softness, right? And that's why we joined this program. There's a softness of like comfort and all this stuff. It's like, do you know where that goes? The comfort leads to fat, leads to stagnation, leads to death. The fire in your eyes, the fire in your soul is directly correlated to how long you stay in the fire of discomfort, how long you could wake up, how many streaks can you have until you fall off, knowing that you don't miss something for 100 days. Imagine the confidence that you feel if you stick to something for 100 days. So here's my challenge to you, 7 days. Go 7 days where you don't miss. And I promise you'll feel this fire in your belly, this fire in your heart. You're training for a mission, you're eating for a mission, you're living for a mission, your relationships are for a mission. You stop worshiping other people, places, and things. You start worshiping your heart. All right, guys, let's crush it. Much love.